Nishikata likes Takagi. We've known this ever since Eraser, and the show has several other moments where this fact is made clear. He doesn't ask her out because he isn't able to come to terms with those feelings yet. Takagi also likes Nishikata. This is something else we have known since Eraser. She doesn't ask him out because she knows he isn't ready, and that she isn't either. However, a question that gets addressed far less often than whether these two like each other is whether Nishikata understands that Takagi likes him. I believe this question is the ultimate point of two stories this season. One of those stories being today's topic for analysis, Valentine's Day. Based on the manga's 45th and 47th chapter, this story can be found in episode 2 from 12 minutes and 15 seconds. The first part of this story is all about Nishikata being on guard, expecting to receive chocolate from Takagi. This happens on their walk to school and during their first class. What I find most interesting about this is Nishikata's expectation that Takagi will give him chocolate. I did a little reading on how Valentine's Day works in Japan, and I'm going to take a moment to explain it here. I'll leave my source in the description, and if you'd rather skip all this, I'll leave a time code below. In Japan, it is typically females who give out chocolates on Valentine's Day, and there are two kinds that they might share. Giri choco, or obligation chocolate, is given to friends, family, and people they love in a non-romantic way. Honmei choco, or favorite chocolate, on the other hand, is only given to a romantic interest. So what does it say about Nishikata that he is expecting to get chocolate from Takagi and disappointed not to receive any? Now, there is an argument to be made that he is worried about being teased. This is something he even explicitly thinks to himself during class. However, I can't help but feel that his disappointment in not receiving any chocolate is genuine. If being teased was really his only concern, he would have been relieved to have not gotten any chocolate from Takagi. But he's not. We then get to the point in the story where Mina gives out her own homemade chocolate to her classmates. Now, believe it or not, there are plenty of interesting points to be made in this short scene. First of all, the fact that Hamaguchi and Kimura are too embarrassed to ask Mina for chocolate, despite the fact she's giving them out, gives us a decent baseline level of the embarrassment for the boys in this story. We all know that Nishikata is very easily flustered, so showing the more laid-back characters being nervous about something clues us into whether Nishikata is appropriately flustered for someone his age or not. We also saw this in Swimsuit when even Nakai admitted he was embarrassed about being in a ladies' swimsuit store. This happened to tell the viewers and Takagi that Nishikata's nerves were more appropriate than originally thought. There's also something here that I noticed about Yukari. Now, please don't laugh. In hindsight, this was completely obvious even to the most general viewer, and I am ashamed that it has taken me this long to realise. But she is the only other character in this show besides Nishikata whose thoughts we can hear. She is the other POV character. She has been ever since Soda in Season 1. How I never picked up on this or talked about it is genuinely beyond me. I guess it just goes to show that even someone who studies this anime far more than anyone probably should can still miss a thing or two in the grand scheme of things. Last but not least, this scene sets up Mano's main conflict in this story. While the majority of this story is based on the manga's 45th chapter, the middle section is based on chapter 47, Mano the Classmate. Mano's conflicts throughout the show usually contend with her having to deal with Nakai's airheaded and unintentionally inconsiderate nature, and wondering if this is a result of a lack of interest on his part. She laments that he is always around his guy friends and rarely makes time to be alone with her during school. She wishes that she could be more like Mina, able to get up and hand out chocolate to anyone with no sense of embarrassment. And lastly, this scene sets up that Tanabe is on the hunt for chocolate and will confiscate any that he finds. So for Mano, this scene is all about setting up all the hoops she needs to jump through to give her chocolate to Nakai. She has a brief discussion with Takagi about whether she had given her chocolate yet. Now, this next point is a little off topic, but it's still kind of interesting. In this interaction, Takagi tells Mano that she had left her chocolate in Nishikata's locker. Now, what's interesting here is that in the anime, they censor this admission with passerby chatter, seemingly treating this fact as a surprise for the end of the episode. However, in the manga, no such censorship is present. Now, I believe the reason for that is that in the manga, we have already read the end of Valentine's Day, so keeping the reveal a secret would have been pointless. Whereas here in the anime, the stories are split up in a way that we don't know how Valentine's Day is going to end yet, so keeping the reveal a secret makes more sense. As Mano goes looking for Nakai, she thinks about how difficult it is going to be for her to give him her chocolate. She describes it as a test, which may go to show how Mano feels inadequate, that she needs to prove herself to Nakai in order to date him, that maybe it's up to her to change his dense personality. Now, I usually try and keep these analysis videos as academic as possible and not get too much into the emotional stuff, but I feel like I need to say, Mano is far too young to be putting that kind of pressure on herself. Yes, relationships are meant to be a chance to grow and become a better, stronger person, but Mano is still in middle school. No one that young should be putting themselves into situations that cause this much anxiety. I don't know, I feel bad for her. So she finds Nakai with his friends and tries to give her chocolate to him. But while she nervously blunders her way to the point, Nakai's friends make fun of him for getting chocolate from his girlfriend. Now, the first few times I watched this, I thought they were making fun of Mano. She certainly seems to think they are. And I was ready to commend Nakai for telling his friends to knock it off. But then I was confused as to his obliviousness after she ran away. It wasn't until writing this script that I realized his friends were teasing him and he was only standing up for himself. That's why he doesn't understand why Mano runs away. As far as him and his friends were concerned, Mano barely factored into the equation. Mano finds a quiet place to vent to no one about how difficult it is to give Nakai her chocolate. However, I feel as though the chocolate is pulling double duty here, meaning literal chocolate as well as being a metaphor for her romantic feelings for Nakai. Nakai's friends are what stopped her from giving him the chocolate. Nakai's friends are also commonly what keeps him away from Mano. She ends this rant by wondering if he even wants her chocolate, implying that she wonders if he even wants her around as his girlfriend. When Nakai comes looking for her, she can't help but smile. Chasing after her after she ran away is clearly a sign to her that he does care. She derides him for being insensitive and he offers a confused apology. This seemingly reminds Mano that her boyfriend does not intentionally try to push her away. He's just denser than compressed diamond. And despite being an emotional drain for Mano, it's still a relief for her to realise that he isn't actually sick of her. She offers him chocolate and he gladly accepts. Just as Tanabe turns the corner to see them. He goes to confiscate the chocolate, but Nakai lies to him. He tells Tanabe that Mano is simply returning a book. Tanabe gives an intense glare to Nakai, but he stands strong. Nervous, but strong. Tanabe believes him and wanders off. Remember when I said earlier that Mano had several hoops to jump through to get this chocolate to Nakai? Well, this interaction with Tanabe means that Nakai has actually had to jump through one of those hoops for her. Despite coming at a great expense to Mano's comfort, Nakai eventually meets her halfway and actually puts in some work to receive this chocolate and prove that he also accepts her feelings. He insists that he is very happy to have received this chocolate. This section of the story ends with Mano storming off, reminding herself that Nakai's cluelessness had caused all the trouble she had been through, and Nakai follows her asking if she is still mad. Also reminding us that Nakai is just a little bit clueless. We then return to the main plot, with Nishikata and Takagi at the end of the day. When Nishikata finds chocolate in his locker, his first excuse to Takagi is that it was probably one of Kimura's pranks. But of course, he knows it isn't, because of the conversation he had had with Kimura earlier, where he was so depressed about not getting any chocolate that he didn't even want to hear about it. Now, of course, Takagi tells him that he is wrong, because she knows who put it there, and she thinks that person is very close. On a surface level is an attempt to tease him, to make him realise it was her, but inject enough doubt that he won't want to risk taking a guess, which is exactly what happens. But of course, here at Behind Big Joe, we like to look a little deeper. At the start of this video, I said that this story asks a question. Does Nishikata understand that Takagi likes him? And if so, can he admit that to himself or to her? Turns out this is a question that Takagi herself is trying to answer with this little test. If he does guess that it's her, then she will know that he understands how she feels. If he doesn't, then he either isn't at the point where he understands her feelings, or he isn't at the point where he can admit those feelings. As members of the audience who can read Nishikata's mind, we know the second option to be true. Nishikata does subconsciously understand that Takagi likes him, but at this point in his life, he can't even comprehend the idea. I also feel like the second part of Takagi's trick, to give him a Giri chocolate as well, also has more depth to it than her just wanting to tease him. Now, heads up, this is a bit of a stretch, but you guys seem to like it when I go out on a bit of a stretch, so let's see how this goes. I feel like it's a statement from her that at this point in her life, she feels both ways about Nishikata. I've said before that she does like him, but she isn't at a point where she can be with him yet. I feel like offering him both kinds of chocolate is a statement that while there are romantic feelings, she is happy with being his friend for now. I could talk about how we never actually see Nishikata accept the Giri chocolate and how that could be him subconsciously choosing Takagi's romantic feelings over her platonic ones, but I'm not entirely sure if that was intentional or if he did take the Giri chocolate and we just weren't shown it. So I'm not going to read too much into that. So ultimately this story poses a question. Does Nishikata understand that Takagi likes him? And it answers, yes, he does, but only on a subconscious level. He is still too distracted by the teasing and the games to really comprehend the idea. And as far as I can tell, that's exactly how Takagi wants it. For now. And that is it for this analysis. A special thanks to Orion Tran for supporting me on Patreon. If you would like to join Orion or view the outtakes of this video for free, you can do so via the links in the description. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.